And joining us from Wilmington in the U.S. state of Delaware is my colleague Amrit Pal Singh. Amrit, walk us through Prime Minister Modi's engagements over the next several hours.
Okay, as you just said, that the Prime Minister landed at the Philadelphia airport, which is about a half an hour drive from Wilmington. Though Philadelphia is in another state called Pennsylvania, he drove down to Wilmington here in Delaware, where he interacted with the Indian community very briefly. They performed dances, garba. He's now on his way to a meeting with President Joe Biden of the United States. President Biden belongs to Delaware. He grew up here. He has a home here at Wilmington, and he's invited Prime Minister Modi at his home, at his personal home. So it's an hour-long bilateral meeting where the two leaders will review the bilateral relationship. There's a comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries, a pretty diverse relationship in diverse fields that shall come up for review. Then he goes to Archmere Academy. That is the school where President Biden's children, President Biden's grandchildren studied here in on the suburbs of Wilmington. It's called a place called Claymont. So in that school, President Biden is hosting all the three visiting leaders. That's Narendra Modi, Fumio Kishida, the Japanese Prime Minister, and Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, where they will go in for a fourth in-person Quad Leaders Summit that shall, of course, review the progress made in Quad in the past 1 year, set out the agenda for the coming year, and also look at announcing initiatives, expanding the initiatives in various fields like maritime domain awareness, cooperation between the coast guards of countries, etc., and also looking at how linkages can be formed that can lead to development of the countries of the region, not just these four countries, but other countries in the Indo-Pacific region, and of course strengthening this Indo-Pacific region, making it a secure place. He will also briefly meet Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Albanese separately, and there is a small event called the Cancer Moonshot event, where the four leaders shall be speaking. Cancer Moonshot event, as Ramesh you would know, is a project that's very close to President Biden's heart, so there could be some announcements of how the Quad countries could work together to battle the scourge of cancer. Ramesh?
Amrit, you spoke about Joe Biden's private home in Delaware and the school he went to as well. Let's address those two venues one by one. First, to his private home, Amrit. Why do you think Biden chose his hometown to host the Quad Summit? What are the thoughts that might have gone into it?
I think President Biden wanted to add a personal touch to the Quad. He could have held it in Washington, D.C., his official home, but he chose to keep it at his personal home and invite Prime Minister Modi. That, of course, speaks about the relationship between the two leaders, but also is reflective of the close relationship and the growing relationship which is strengthening by the day, by the years between the two countries. As you know, this is President Biden hangs his spur at the end of this year. Since he pulled out of the race of the U.S. presidential election. So it's clear that he ends his term and steps down after that once it's over. But it does speak about, whatever party comes to power, the India-U.S. relationship is growing. So I think President Biden chose his home and also the school in a way to send a message to the Quad countries that this is a very personal relationship, and also I think he would want to leave a legacy behind as he demits office of leading the United States, strengthening its relations and forming meaningful linkages with countries across the world. Ramesh?
Amrit, you also visited the high school where Joe Biden studied as a young boy. What was that like? What did the students there have to say about the fact that the U.S. president chose his own hometown to host the Quad Summit?
Oh, yes, I was there. I spent a couple of hours there, and there were children playing. There was a rugby match going, so there was visible excitement. So when I spoke to a few students, I had sent that report also where they said, one, they are generally very proud that they go to the same school that the President of the United States went to. But now, given the fact that world leaders of important countries like Australia, India, Japan, and grouping as relevant and important or significant as Quad. These leaders are holding the Quad summit in their school. They say it's a matter of honor, and it's a matter. One of the children told me it's a matter of students told me it's a matter of national pride and a personal pride for him. So there was visible excitement. Of course, the school is shut for children today, the students today, because of the security of these leaders, and that's one thing that they were cribbing about. They said the school should have allowed them in, and so that they could see the leaders, but in any case, but they were very happy that their school is the venue of the Quad Leaders Summit. Ramesh?
Amrit, that was all about the optics of the summit and the visit itself. Let's now turn attention to the substantive part of their talks in the US. Amrit, what should one expect from the Modi-Biden bilateral meeting in terms of outcomes?
Ramesh, your voice broke. Could you please repeat your question
Can you hear me
again?
now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you very clearly now.
So, Amrit, we discussed about the optics of the summit and the talks in the US. Let's now turn our attention to the substantive part of their talks there. What should one expect, in terms of outcomes from the Modi-Biden bilateral talks?
Okay, first the Modi bilateral Biden talks. The bilateral is essentially to take review of the partnership and work out, how the partnership can be deepened in areas of trade, of defense ties, of the Indian talent pool working here in the United States, and how they could also discuss the international conflict, especially the Ukraine conflict, given that their Prime Minister Modi had made certain suggestions. He spoke to both sides. He had visited Russia, spoken to President Putin, also later visited Ukraine, spoke to President Zelensky. So the two sides could discuss that how a meaningful effort can be made to resolve this conflict, and if there is a scope of mediation in whatever form the two countries want or the two blocs want, India could play a constructive role. So I think that would be of paramount importance, given that in the Middle East or in West Asia, the crisis is deepening. The two sides could discuss what is the way forward to resolve that conflict, and as I said, look at aspects of the bilateral relationship. But the Foreign Secretary is briefing reporters here by the end of the day, so we'll know once the talks finish as to what agreements were made, what points were agreed upon. I don't think there are any formal agreements, because let's be realistic, President Biden hangs his purse, so he's in the sort of last days of his presidency. So at this stage, some concrete agreements between the two sides may not, but yes, to give continuity to the relationship, the whole gamut of the bilateral ties will come up for discussion, apart from the other international issues that I mentioned.
Indeed, Amrit, and you've covered India-US ties for the longest time I've known. So how would you describe the current state of play in the bilateral relations in terms of, one, defense and security, in terms of people-to-people ties, trade and investment, and last but not the least, the ICET, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies? I ask you this because semiconductors are very much in the news.
Absolutely. ICET is the new area where the two sides are putting focus. India's been giving a push to semiconductor, given its huge talent pool, given its manufacturing base, and given that US is one of the biggest consumers of semiconductors. So the two sides would want to look at cooperation in that. And as technology changes, as semiconductors increasingly play an important role in touching our lives in every way, as technology becomes an essential part of everyday life of humanity, of humans. This would be a key focus area when the two leaders sit and talk. The two sides have been working on that. In fact, then again, okay, the defense relationship, maritime cooperation between the two sides, cooperation in the domain of defense equipment, joint manufacturing. The US companies are interested in investing in India. I'm talking about in the defense sector as India opens up its defense manufacturing base. So the two sides would be reviewing that and seeing that how that can be deepened. In fact, he's holding a meeting with the CEOs. It's called the CEO Roundtable. So he'll be interacting with the businesses, heads of businesses here in US, some very important companies, also some big names as well, looking at how a push can be given for investment into India and manufacturing by US companies collaborating with the Indian manufacturers. Ramesh.
Amrit, so we've covered the bilateral component or dimension of the India-US relationship, especially in light of the Prime Minister's ongoing visit to the US. Let me also ask you of the multilateral aspects of the visit in terms of, one, his other bilaterals with the leaders of the other Quad members, namely Japan and Australia. This is Prime Minister Kishida's farewell visit of sorts because he'll be stepping down very soon, we are told.
Yes, he'll be interacting after his meeting with President Biden. President Biden's home is about 20-25 minutes away from where he studied, the Archmere Academy. So he drives down to the Archmere Academy, the venue of the Quad Leaders Summit, where he'll briefly interact with Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Albanese before the leaders go in for the Quad Leaders Summit in the afternoon. Of course, they'll review the bilateral relationship there, but those are smaller meetings with the prime ministers. The meeting with the US president is a longer one. Then they go in for the Quad Leaders Summit. Now, coming to the multilateral aspect of it, they'll be reviewing the progress made in Quad in the past 1 year. They'll also be looking at how the Quad could strengthen its ties. There are interesting statements coming out of the White House. John Kirby, the White House spokesperson, made it clear that they are not looking at it as a military alliance, but it is a grouping, because India had sensitivities on it being seen or it developing as a military alliance. India has been clear right from the beginning that it does not see itself as a NATO kind of grouping in the Indo-Pacific, though securing the Indo-Pacific is an important part, but that could be achieved through maritime exercises between countries. But India does not see it as a military alliance, and I think the other Quad partners are on board on that, and John Kirby's statement clears the air on that the Americans also look at Quad as that. From an Indian standpoint, I think the Indian Prime Minister, when he addresses the other leaders, would be giving a push for strengthening linkages amongst these countries that lead to meeting the developmental goals and aspirations of the countries of the region. They would also look at increasing cooperation, say in maritime domain awareness, looking at how environmental impact can be taken care of, clean energy, extending the ambit of the Indo-Pacific right up to the Indian Ocean region. Some maritime exercises between the coast guards of the two countries could be announced at the Quad Summit. Also, Ramesh, that financing of developmental initiatives in these areas, apart from disaster resilience, would be what the leaders will be talking at the Quad Leaders Summit.
All right, we leave it there. Amrit, thank you for that comprehensive overview of India-US ties and also the Quad Summit. We'll keep coming back to you for more as we go along, but thank you for now. Appreciate it. Amrit Pal Singh reporting there.